listeners. Welcome to the next session.
An advice podcast for game masters seeking help with their next game session. I'm Adam Johns.
And I'm Alyssa Johns. It's the end of the summer.
End of summer.
End of summer, starting of fall.
Yeah.
Get back into it.
We get back into, those other sessions, those other next session podcast episodes, those weren't getting back into it. You're in it now. This is it. This is what we're finally back in it.
I mean, you can't discount all the other ones.
I think that's what we just did. No. If you're listening to this, boy, are you in for a treat. We're finally in it.
I just mean that our kid is back in school. We can record more frequently.
That's true.
We are back into the fall schedule.
I am excited for that. That's very true. Also, pumpkin spice lattes.
Well, I don't like coffee.
Yeah, but I will drink one on your behalf.
Oh, thanks. That means your breath is going to smell.
Yeah, like pumpkins.
Like pumpkins. Well, I'm excited for this next session question.
Ooh.
This question comes from John the Red Warlock.
John the Red Warlock. That's fun. I like that. Are Red Warlocks a kind of warlock? Are warlocks like Green Lanterns?
I mean, I don't know that warlocks are specifically color-coded.
Can I be a green warlock or a purple warlock?
Stop talking over me. You keep talking over me.
There's a kind of guitar called a Red Warlock. Warlock is a kind of guitar shape.
Is it really?
Yeah. And there's a red version of that. It's a pretty sweet guitar.
Okay, now I gotta look at it.
Electric guitar.
Oh my gosh, that's a rockin' guitar.
It's a rockin' guitar.
John the Red Warlock.
John the Red Warlock, maybe he's referring to his sweet guitar.
For how rockin' he is.
I wonder if he's a warlock or a bard. Maybe he's a multi-class.
He's a bard-lock.
A bard-lock.
A warbard.
Oh. Yeah, I like it either way.
A warbard to me would have like a bandolier of like harmonicas and flutes and like...
It seems to he would draw.
Yeah,
there's like a little like
draw like clarinets.
But he plays that.
The Red Warlock guitar strapped to his back, so
Yeah.
he could just swing it over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Awesome. John the Red Bardlock says, no, Warlock. Sorry for this long one, but I wanted to give you the most information I could.
Cool. I always like that.
All right.
More information.
Tuck in.
I'm tucking in.
I am running a one-off campaign. The players are creating level 13 characters, and I'm going to give them some magic items that they can pick from. I don't really care if it breaks things. This is a session meant to keep playing D&D while our main campaign is on hiatus. By the way, they know I'm not going to be easy here, so character death is understood to possibly happen. Now, the question is this. To have fun, the players are being hired to perform a dinosaur hunt. So they will be tasked with hunting a bunch of different dinos, some easy, some not so easy, by someone that is essentially your vision of an English 1900s big game hunter from England. Oh my gosh, that immediately puts me into Jumanji.
Oh, yeah.
With the hunter.
Yeah, or I was thinking League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with Sean Connery's character.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have two items I wanted to throw at them that add the heavy flavor. One was going to actually throw a complete party of non-player characters onto the Dino Hunt Island as well, essentially doing the same thing. I am pondering how to utilize them. Should I have them sabotage the characters in some way? Or just have them pop in and out, taunting the players relentlessly about letting Dino number 1 get away when they don't, etc., etc. Any other interesting ideas how to use these non-player characters would be fun. And 2, the main big bad dino has a special power where it eats something. It can inherit one of the following as it's eaten: an ability score, a trait, an action, a bonus action, a reaction, a natural or magical, AC, number of hit dice, skill proficiency, saving throw proficiency, condition immunity. Oh my gosh, this list goes on and on. Any of these things of a creature it eats with its devour bonus action. So it's basically a giant Kirby.
Yeah.
If the dino gains an intelligence score of 4 or more, it can also gain language using this trait. Essentially, this dino can get stronger and smarter the more it eats, absorbing skills and traits. That is where the true power of this dino is. I was thinking of trying to figure out a way this dino pops into the scene, eats, shows the players he's absorbing and changing and growing, and then pops out of the scene. The goal is to have the players see it grow and realize that the longer they leave it, the bigger chance it is that it will be too much for them to handle. How would you handle this? You might find it amusing. Each time we meet to play this scenario, assuming it lasts more than once, the players are randomly given the character that they play.
Oh, so they have like a hunter or whatever that they're playing through,
I think it's just going to be like, this is your character you're playing for this Dino Hunt.
For the Dino Hunt. Okay.
This session.
Yeah, yeah.
I really like the dinosaur that grows and changes as it eats. The Kirby dinosaur. We're going to call it Kirbyosaurus.
Kirbyosaurus,
of course. And it's pink. It has to be pink.
Right.
So Kirbyosaurus and the NPCs can work together. Basically, have the NPCs come in, they're taunting, they're like, we're going to get the Kirbyosaurus, you're not, blah, blah, blah. The Kirbyosaurus shows up and eats some of the non-player characters. So you can see this non-player character could wield fire. Now this dinosaur has fire-tip fingers or fire-tip footsteps or fire breath or whatever.
So to me, all of this looks like a Monster Hunter fight. The whole thing seems like you're basically playing Monster Hunter.
Maybe we are.
If you're familiar with the Monster Hunter games, you'll absolutely agree with me. If you're not familiar with the Monster Hunter games, they're basically games where you wield sort of comedically large anime style weapons as you go on a hunt for a giant monster, often imbued with some kind of like elemental effect, like a giant lightning squirrel or a dragon or something along those lines. And you basically like hunt it through a landscape like a forest or a desert as they require a lot of sort of fighting this giant monster to eventually defeat it. And this has all that same sort of quality to it, even to the point of like having this big monster show up and potentially gain, these extra qualities that go along with it.
But how does Monster Hunter help them here?
Well, because I think you can take away a lot of the little moments. If you play through the Monster Hunter games, there are little cutscenes where it introduces a new monster, or where it has a new thing show up, and so you'll be off fighting, the turtle monster or whatever, and then while you're fighting the turtle monster, the dragon monster will show up and be in the background and then like wander away, letting you finish fighting the turtle monster, but now that dragon monster is probably going to be your next fight. So there's a little bit of that like cutscene mechanic that happens that I think is a really good way to maybe set some of this up. And I can think of a couple of different ways to do this, and it might even be great to have maybe all of these in your back pocket for the circumstances as they might come up. So, for instance, I don't think that the big monster should necessarily always eat an NPC. I think that's a great way to go, and I want to circle back around to these NPCs because I think there's a couple of really fun ideas to that. But skipping ahead to that second part, how do you introduce this big monster? I think you can wait until the players are being defeated by, like, they're basically bit off a little more than they can chew against a specific dinosaur, and then have that big dinosaur show up and more or less eat the dinosaur that was just defeating them. And then wander away or whatever.
Or Deus Ex Dinosaur.
Yeah. Essentially Godzilla fight, right? Like Godzilla was about to defeat you, but Mothra shows up, who also wants to probably defeat you, but Mothra is more distracted by Godzilla at the moment. So they're fighting each other, and it gives you the opportunity where, Kirbyosaurus can take a big bite out of that dinosaur, and you can watch it like grow spines along its back or something like that. Something very visual, clearly demonstrating it now has adapted this extra armor or lightning breath or whatever that the monster you were just fighting was using and demonstrating. Yeah. I would also, I like the dinosaur island. I would think really critically about what are the qualities of each of these dinosaurs. How can you really lean into that quality so that you've got, this dinosaur is really heavily armored, and you get to see that. And there's an interesting question here of like, what level of dinosaur accuracy are you going to need to stick to? Are your players going to be sticklers for dinosaur accuracy?
Oh, yeah.
Or can you kind of make up whatever Asauruses you want to have and have, a wide variety of stuff, including potentially like, this is a lightning dinosaur. It spews lightning at you. Like, obviously dinosaurs didn't do that, but
I don't think I would do this sort of scenario in a group of people who might school you on certain dinosaurs not existing at the same time as other dinosaurs.
Oh, sure.
That was not in the Jurassic area. That was in the Paleolithic era.
The Jurassic Park argument.
Yeah, exactly.
None of these were actually Jurassic. Or you can excuse that. It's a dinosaur island. Also did not exist during that time period.
Yes.
But
and, fantasy world.
But if your players are going to be real sticklers for the particular qualities of this dinosaur actually wasn't that big. It actually had feathers instead of scales. Like, you want to be aware of what level of anachronism you want to have in this sort of setup that you're going into. I love the idea of like, yeah, these dinosaurs are similar to dinosaurs, but they're not exactly like dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you live in a magical world.
Something morphed on this island, or you can just start your game with a spoiler with a tag that's like, the dinosaurs you are about to see do not exist. Never existed.
They've never existed.
You have been warned. Dun dun.
But that lets you lean even more into the Monster Hunter style, which is, a lot of the monsters in Monster Hunter are sort of dinosaur-like. And once again, especially if you and your players have never played the Monster Hunter games, you may be able to pull a lot of really interesting custom, effectively dinosaurs from those Monster Hunter games. So I would totally recommend, looking up a few of those monsters and taking some inspiration from those to create some cool, interesting custom monsters. However, I will point out that there are a bunch of dinosaurs that already exist in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and if you're just hoping to basically use those stat blocks, totally go for it. That I'm sure you can put together some really interesting dinosaur hunts on those dinosaurs alone, plus your big Kirbyosaurus that you're setting up as well.
Oh yeah, there's some great dinosaurs to pull from, which you probably already know.
That being said, coming back to the NPCs, I have one of my favorite things to do is set up the classic rival character. You think about in Pokemon, there's the other
Gary.
Yeah, Gary. Is that
Red? No, you're Red. Gary was Ash's OG rival.
Yeah, this is the character who's kind of a jerk, but is also pretty good at what he does. But he's setting up a rivalry, but he's not evil, right? He's not a bad guy. He wants to play by the rules and beat you. And having a character like that in here sounds like a perfect setup. Somebody who can be like, the Draco Malfoy of this interaction, where this person is a jerk and makes fun of you and says like, oh, where'd you get that hunting gear from, your grandpa or whatever? Like takes jabs and stuff, and then has their little henchmen or whatever that go along with it. And I think one of the best setups here is to set up the idea that this Gary character also has some special qualities. Maybe is like a fish person race, or a wizard, a hunter, or something like that. That eventually Gary's going to get eaten by the big Kirbyosaurus, and you can set up that for yourself. Again, this is another sort of back pocket reveal for the Kirbyosaurus getting more powerful because it ate the Gary character.
Although I could also see that you have the Kirbyosaurus eat Gary's friends,
right?
And then Gary teams up with you to get revenge on the Kirbyosaurus, lending his power.
Absolutely, yes. I think that's also an awesome idea.
It's a good trope.
Well, what's great about this, and what's great about what you've already set up here, Red Warlock, is that there's a lot of really good directions that you can go, and you can have all those directions available to you, and wait and see what the players do. If they really hate Gary, maybe having the moment where Gary gets eaten by the Kirbyosaurus is super fun. And they get to, all cheer that Gary got eaten by the Kirbyosaurus, and then all be terrified that now Gary's special power of breathing acid breath happens to be the Kirbyosaurus' special power of breathing acid breath, and now you're in big trouble, which could be a lot of fun. Or alternatively, the Kirbyosaurus eats Gary's teammates, and, Gary runs away scared and then comes to you afterwards and goes, I was wrong. I need your help. I want to get revenge, and I can't beat this thing on my own. And that also could be really satisfying. And both those scenarios are wonderful opportunities to set that up as a character for your players.
You can also have the Kirbyosaurus gain its intelligence for language and start talking like the Gary character.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ooh, the puny sword.
And the Kirby-saurus is then making fun of you.
Are you going to get me with that puny sword?
Oh, it's so tiny. Oh, that is also hilarious. The thing he gains from the Gary character is just taunting you language.
Yeah, his want to be better than you and taunt you. His bulliness.
Yeah, that's also hilarious. I do think having it be, it sounds like you're already setting it up that it's sort of a competition thing. You could go the direction of the NPCs are like sabotaging you or even trying to like hurt you or kill you. If you did it sort of survivalist island.
Well,
like you're dumped on the island and then expected to survive to the end kind of thing.
It sounds like the group is being hired to perform the dinosaur hunt by someone that is the vision of the English hunter. So to me, that sounds like the English hunter is going along with the group to hunt the dinosaurs.
It could be, but this could also be a battle arena kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Where the English, every super wealthy person, he is bored of hunting. This is the man is the greatest thing, the greatest prey or whatever. But it's a little twist on that, which is that he doesn't hunt people. He just hires people and pays them a lot of money to effectively be ripped to shreds by the dinosaurs on this island.
Yeah, I could see if maybe the teams that are going on the dinosaur hunt, there's some sort of like ranking system for what kind of dinosaurs that they bring in or bring down. Mm-hmm. And it could be like the wealthy going, these are my champions, where are your champions?
Yeah,
and, that we'll make them fight.
And making bets and stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever. Yeah, I could picture it going that direction too.
But it could also be that the big hunter guy secretly does want to hunt the party.
It could be. You could turn into, now you're fighting dinosaurs and the hunters.
And being hunted.
Yeah. Or it could be you finally defeat, the big Kirby-osaurus only to find out that they just wanted to sort through the chaff. They wanted to get the best hunters so that they could then hunt those people. So the end of the hunt turns out not to be the Kirby-osaurus, which you finally defeated. It turns out to be you. Now you are now facing these hunters, these expert hunters, and you are the prey. Which also could be a really interesting twist on the whole thing.
Yes, now it's get off the island.
Now it's get off the island, get away from these hunters, which could be fun.
It could also be like the loot that you earn for defeating the dinosaurs is in the middle of the island, but now you're being hunted, so you have to get the loot and get out.
Yeah, and I think you could do a little bit of like Hunger Games style. People are killing each other to be the last ones left alive.
Oh yeah, it totally sounds like a Hunger Games.
Right. But you're right. You could go the other direction. You could have the big game hunter wants to hunt along with you, which provides you with a lot of opportunities to either lean on the expertise of that NPC. The only thing that you want to be careful about in that scenario is you don't want the NPC to do all the work.
Well, you also don't want the Kirby-osaurus to eat him, or maybe you do.
Or maybe you do. Maybe that's the fun twist. That's what I love about this. It's such a good idea because you could go so many different directions with it. You could really set up a lot of really interesting, paths for where this storyline could go. I like that having that in your back pocket lets you really respond to what the players are looking for. If they start to really hate the hunter guy, then maybe having him turn into the evil hunter who wants to hunt man kind of thing at the end is much more satisfying. Now they can turn the tables against him and get a chance to fight against him. Whereas if they start to really like him, getting him eaten by the Kirby-osaurus drives the players forward to getting revenge. And both those plot lines are fantastic plot lines. Or maybe injured, right? Maybe he gets injured and he gets taken out, and that's a way it slows you down. Mm. It's probably worthwhile if you're trying to get inspiration for this. I feel like watching some of the Jurassic Park movies could provide you with a lot of opportunity for inspiration. Part of the challenge with intelligent monsters is sometimes that now the monsters need motivation. So if you just have, a big dinosaur and it's just roaring at you and it's just trying to eat you because you're in its path, then it's a lot easier to justify, hey, we're going to kill this monster or whatever. Even more so if there are innocent people on this island. Killing this monster, helps protect innocent people. And your players may not question the motivations of this, But all of a sudden, when you have an intelligent monster who can talk to you, the motivations are going to shift.
Well, my idea, if the Kirbysaurus suddenly became intelligent, it would know that it wants to have more power. It wants to get off this island. It's going to start heading for like the boats or the airships or whatever.
Right.
Or it's going to go to destroy the boats or the airships and then say, no one is leaving until I get my revenge on these Dino Hunts.
Right. And I think that's plenty, right? That may be enough to make sure this intelligent Kirbysaurus is not going to let you leave this island alive.
Or the intelligent Kirbysaurus is actually a Mamaosaurus and has some eggs nearby and is just protecting her eggs.
Which then is another interesting twist that could turn into you going up against the hunters instead, trying to protect the Kirbysaurus, which is another fun possible direction that this could go. And again, that really depends on, do you want to have a moral conundrum in here? Do you want to make this just beating up some monsters that are more or less just bad guys in some way?
What if one of the NPCs on the rival team has some sort of power that if it were to be eaten by the dinosaur would like make it terrible or make it even worse or something? So like now you're protecting that one NPC.
Yeah. I think that's a super interesting idea. What do you think that power would be?
I was thinking like maybe a portal power.
Oh, and then the Kirbysaurus could portal out of the island into anywhere else.
Exactly.
That's pretty good.
And you could set it up like, you hunters, you didn't tell us. Why didn't you tell us?
Yeah.
What was out here?
Yeah. It could be really problematic.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose something also like that would make the Kirbysaurus invulnerable.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That now there's nothing you can do. There's no way for you to defeat the Kirbysaurus if it effectively swallows the invulnerable guy.
Unless it swallows someone who is affected by poison.
Oh.
Ooh. So maybe
you could have a poison dart frog guy.
Well, I was thinking like maybe they poison one of the other dinosaurs and use it as bait.
Yeah.
To get the Kirbysaurus to try and eat it to get them to be poisoned from the inside.
Sure. That could be really interesting. It's a little bit like fighting a Tarrasque at some point.
Yeah. Well, John the Red Warlock, I really, really love your scenario. I love your question. I really hope that some of this works for you. Please let us know what you decide to do or what direction you guys ended up going.
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear how this comes together. I feel like this has so many opportunities in it, and this sounds like it's going to be a blast and so much fun for your players. So I'm so glad that you messaged us, John the Red Warlock, and definitely let us know how it goes.
Yes. You sent me your address. I'm going to send you a sticker.
Yeah, there you go. Get that sticker game going.
Yeah, stickers.
All right.
All right. Let's take a break.
Hey, that sounds great.
And we're back.
Hey, we're back.
How'd you like that break?
It was a great break.
I took a lap in the pool.
Oh, it's a good thing we have that giant Olympic-sized swimming pool that we've never mentioned before on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. We just took a dip.
But it's like right here, right next to our recording spot.
Yeah.
I'm kind of amazed that we were able to get the sound not all reflecting off the pool and all the pool sounds kind of in the background because you can hear them right now.
Do you have a splash sound effect?
I don't. I wish I had a splash sound. Sploosh. Somebody's jumping off the diving board.
In my head, we don't have these sound effects, but in my head, you would go to do the splash sound effect and you accidentally do like the toilet flush sound effect. It's like not the kind of pool I was thinking.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Ask a GM this week comes from mjsShadow.
Ooh, mjsShadow.
mjsShadow. Maybe it's Majors.
Majors Shadow. But it's not major. It's Majors.
Majors. Well, because like Mrs. is MRS.
Yeah.
So what would MJS be?
Majors.
Majors.
I assume. Yeah.
Major Shadow. Major Shadow. mjsShadow says, hi. One of my PCs likes to use Arcane Eye to look at a room/rooms before going in. They have a penchant for slowly opening doors. I have taken advice on that, and it's getting better, but Arcane Eye is a fairly high-cost spell, 4th level, and provides a lot of value. The ability to basically see through it, move the eye, and it is invisible. Because of its high cost, I don't want to downplay its usage and importance. The player character is making a choice to expend a valuable spell slot. They are level 11 right now, and we're running Vecna, Eve of Ruin. That said, so far, after 8 sessions, there's been a lot of send the eye into this room and report back what you see. The PC also casts Rary's telepathic bond so implicitly, as I've allowed. Basically, everyone in the party hears my description of what the eye sees as that is relayed to everyone else. My main problem with the eye and its usage is that it is slowing down the game. It's impacting the speed at which us humans can play. Each keyed area of the dungeon now has a move the eye and tell me what I see stage before it. Removing the element of the unknown and encouraging cautious play is impacting gameplay and enjoyment. It gives the party an imbalanced edge for the hour it is active. Rules as written, the eye is a controllable eye that is invisible and has normal and dark vision out to 30 feet. It's basically an extension of the caster's sense of sight that they can move around. I've been having the caster do perception checks to gauge how effective the information the eye sees is being interpreted. Do you have any suggestions or feedback on how to fairly make usage of the eye a bit faster? I do know that my party is more cautious, perhaps, than the average group. Any suggestions around that would be helpful and are much appreciated.
So, I think one way to think about this is just imagine you have a rogue who's good at detecting traps and who has specialized their character in being good at detecting traps and disarming traps. And this is effectively the same thing with like a little bit of a, it's a arcane scout essentially, or a wizard scout. And the part of the challenge of that is anytime you're trying to role play out or create the scenario for that rogue, it's kind of a solo activity.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate challenge of something like this is how do you make that engaging for everybody? And usually the answer to that is you really can't. It's kind of a solo activity.
Well, but they say they're using another spell that everyone gets to hear.
Right. So they all get to find out what's going on in the next room, but there's no way they don't get to control the eye, and they don't get to, problem solve anything that the eye is doing other than knowing what's in the next room. So being able to make this engaging is really about kind of skipping ahead to the part where everybody gets to know what's going on. So the way that I would probably play this is I would probably stop describing where the eye goes and what the eye does, unless the player has a specific thing that they really want the eye to do. I would take it from the player. You've had the opportunity, the player's done this several times before. You can say, do you want the arcane eye to scout the room? And the player can say yes, and you go, great, roll 2 checks. That'll be your scout for the room. They roll their checks. You can describe exactly all the things the arcane eye saw during that time. Was there anything else that you wanted the arcane eye to like double check? Great. So we don't need to go through the whole description. We can assume that the eye is invisible. Nobody sees it. It's scouting the room. If there are NPCs in the room, they don't get to see it. Like all that, we can just skip the role play of all that because we've done it before. And so we kind of know what it all looks like. Mm-hmm. If it was the first time a player was using it, I would go through the whole description. But if they're going to be using it again and again, I'd make a couple of checks, say, here's what you find, here's what you don't find, and then let them move ahead with whatever plan it is that they want to have.
Yeah. Paranoid dungeon crowds are not my favorite because it will take forever to get through a dungeon if you're questioning every single little thing that the DM is going to say.
It's totally true.
So I agree with you. I don't think that you should nerf the Arcane Eye at all. I think that
Correct.
They invested in this. This is something that is part of their character, and they love using it for sure.
Yes.
If you were like,
no.
Like
I'm making a face because I totally agree, and I would probably put in some stuff that the Arcane Eye can't see.
Okay, so what I was going to say is, first of all, definitely try and describe the rooms a little faster if you want things to move a little faster. You know that they're going to do this. Know ahead of time what's in each room. You can set it up so that you go, on this is what the Arcane Eye is going to see. You're going to go through it. You know they're going to use it. But How about making some of the rooms more interactive? There's going to be more levers, mechanical things. Like this looks like a trap, but the Arcane Eye cannot you're going to have to go in and figure out what this is. It can't relay everything.
I'm so glad you said that. That's exactly what I was going to say.
And then the other thing is it truly invisible? Can other things that are higher level see it?
If you have the see invisibility spell, you can.
Right? Just saying.
I would go a step further. In a movie, whenever you have a character who can like scry and view a scene or something like that, but then they view in on something really powerful, and that really powerful thing can not just see that you are scrying them, but can like reach through the scrying and like affect you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Where they you think you're like spying on something,
right? It's just
and then they like look right at you.
They look right at you,
and you're like, oh.
And then they like reach through and grab you, even though it's like it's just supposed to be a visual link or whatever. I would do something like that. Like you spy on something that you don't realize is powerful enough, not only to see that you are spying on it, but even to go a step further and like blast you with a psychic blast or something like that. And now you have a little bit more. I mean, I don't know whether or not you want to create more caution for these players, but you do have a little bit more caution about when and where to use the Arcane Eye. It doesn't solve all your problems. You're going to have to come up with some other tactics sometimes because there are things that can see it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's worthwhile to point out that anything that can see invisibility should be able to see through the Arcane Eye. It doesn't have greater invisibility. It only has regular invisibility. Anything that has true sight can see the Arcane Eye. And a lot of natural abilities and spells that can affect things without having line of sight could potentially, theoretically, link back to where the player is. If you had something like true sight allowing you to say figure out where the direction was that the players were likely located.
Can the Arcane Eye see true sight? Does it have true sight?
It does not.
Okay, so there are going to be things that it cannot see.
Correct, including invisible things.
Including invisible things, or not being able to determine if that chest over there is a mimic or not. You know? Also, you can have more patrols. You can have scavengers. You can have guards. That, like, eye doesn't necessarily have to be describing a room. It could be describing this hallway has more guards. Now you know that there's 3 guards in this room or something like that. It, like, add to the dynamic of it.
Yeah. I also think one of the really interesting things about the eye as you're using it is, you're busy using this eye, but the threat of what's going on for you as a physical person could still be a concern. So to your point, like there could be a patrol that comes down the hallway where you're trying to hide. Mm-hmm. And if you have really cautious players, sometimes the best answer for cautious players is to create a dungeon where they have to keep moving. The time where they spend trying to be cautious is playing against them.
Oh, yeah. Staying still in a dungeon can be worse than moving forward.
Right. And sometimes that is a big part of the answer for cautious players. Now, I do agree with you just as far as if I have a group that's too cautious, I like it when one of the group members is like a brash barbarian who just charges in without thinking. If it has a little bit of that dynamic, it helps balance out an overly cautious group. But sometimes you just wind up with a group of players or their characters that are overly cautious, and you have to provide a little bit of the balance to that.
I like the idea of the everybody's focused on what the eye is seeing, and you have an attack from behind that you had no idea was behind you.
And there are some great monsters that, like you said, a mimic would play really well in here.
Oh, yeah.
A displacer beast
would be really great.
Well, not only that,
just secret trapdoors.
Oh, yeah.
All
mechanical stuff, right?
Yeah, or the eye can see. Does it have dark vision?
It has dark vision.
So the eye can't tell that the room is actually, like, super dark.
Right.
Maybe it can't find secret passageways that only monsters can go through.
And I think you can get really creative here. One of the things that I would caution toward is, like you said, this player is investing some time and effort and energy into using this Arcane Eye. It is a clever idea, and this is really the intent for using the spell in the first place. So I wouldn't, suddenly blanket every room in the dungeon with, like, the eye didn't catch it, here's some problems that came up. I would let there be some clear successes that having the eye, and then I would even go a step further as a game master and be like, whoa, it's a good thing you guys scouted out that room with that eye ahead of time, because these were some things that you definitely were going to get surprised by, but you had the eye and that let you be successful. And I would counterbalance that with the next room that having, trying to use the eye again, like, didn't work.
Right. Well, and they can only keep the eye up for an hour.
Right.
And so you have to, you could say with the passage of time, if you use the eye right now, you can go through 5 rooms.
Right.
And then it's cut off unless you cast it again. And level 11 has how many 4th level slots?
Oh, I'm for a wizard, I'm going to guess 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
So they could cast that again and potentially waste it.
Right. There's a lot of ways to kind of lean on this, let it be successful, let the player continue to use it, and also still create a few scenarios that get around it. And as far as it taking up too much time, I would 100% get into the like, you make a couple of checks, great, here's what you see.
Mm-hmm.
Just assume that they are a real sneaky rogue and they went in the room and they looked at everything and they came back out. Like,
yeah, don't get bogged down in the details.
Yeah, let them just be successful, and then make it really clear that, like, these checks are because you're using a valuable tactic. But we don't want to get bogged down into, like, you looking at every single little thing with the eye. We're just gonna assume you got a good look at the room.
Yeah, like you said, it's no different from a player going in and using a perception check.
Right. The last thing that I'll kind of toss in there is one of the things that I like to use when I have a player that's abusing something is anti-magic fields are really valuable for this kind of thing. You can have, a really especially dangerous room that is surrounded by an anti-magic field so that you cannot penetrate it with stuff like this. And that kind of thing can be really valuable. A beholder, if they're high enough level to be fighting something like a beholder, that would be a fantastic thing to basically turn around and demonstrate. That might be something the eye catches, but now the beholder knows that you're there.
Yeah.
Because the beholder has true sight and has the ability to detect that the eye is there.
How could it not with that many eyeballs?
Right. I will point out that beholders also have an anti-magic field that they can project with their eyeball. The big main eyeball.
With the big one.
Yeah, the big one. So I do think that there are some really fantastic, scenarios you can create to particularly guard against this. But I will point out that this happens a lot. Not just specifically the Arcane Eye thing, but that your players figure out a tactic, and that tactic works, and they continue to use that tactic again and again.
Oh, yeah. We get multiple questions of this exact scenario all the time. Listen to our old episodes.
Yeah. Just keep in mind that, like, it's okay. It's okay for your players to come up with some clever tactics, and you can reward those. And then you can start creating some stuff that exists in the game that clever tactic's no longer going to work for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you so much, mjsShadow.
Yeah.
Major Shadow for your question.
Awesome.
And we're going to move on to our favorite segment of the entire podcast, Use That Spell.
Ba-da-ba-ba-bow. Use that spell.
This Use That Spell is called Draconic Transformation. Draconic Transformation is a 7th level transmutation. Casting time 1 bonus action, range of self, components V, S, and M, and the material is a statuette of a dragon worth at least 500 gold pieces. They are not messing around here. You have to have a statuette.
Yeah.
What size is statuette versus a statue?
Well, I guess it could be really tiny, so long as it's worth at least 500 gold pieces.
500 gold pieces,
yeah,
but
just a really intricate, very tiny.
But I'm just trying to figure out, wouldn't it still be a statue?
Yeah, at what point is it small enough to be a statuette?
Yeah, what does that mean? With figurine?
Yeah.
Anyway, it says, with a roar, you draw on the magic of dragons to transform yourself, taking on various draconic features. You gain the following benefits until the spell ends. You have blind sight with a range of 30 feet. Within that range, you can effectively see anything that isn't behind total cover, even if you're blinded or in darkness. Moreover, you can see an invisible creature, like an arcane eye, unless the creature successfully hides from you. Incorporeal wings sprout from your back, giving you flying speed of 40 feet. When you cast the spell, and as a bonus action on subsequent turns for the duration, you can exhale a breath of shimmering energy in a 30-foot cone. Each creature in the area must make a dexterity saving throw, taking 3d8 force damage on a failed save or half as much damage on a successful one. And what's really interesting about that is it just says shimmering energy. It is not a damage type.
It's force damage.
Is it?
Yeah, taking 3d8 force damage.
Dang, I thought I was on to something. I was going to be like, there's
a cool
no way to block it.
Yeah.
Nope, never mind.
Force
damage.
Yeah, which is it's a good kind of damage.
They
it's hard
think
to
of everything.
This is an interesting one for a 7th level spell.
Yeah, it's from Unearthed Arcana, by the way.
Yeah. It doesn't say the statuette of a dragon is consumed, so you don't have to spend 500 gold every single time you want to do it. You just have to spend it once for the statuette of the dragon, and then you have that to use for this spell every time you want to use it.
That's true, as long as you keep a hold of it.
Yeah, and don't break it or whatever. I like some of the pieces of this. It's effectively like a flying spell. Blindsight's really cool, but it's blindsight to 30 feet, which any 7th level, any spellcaster that can cast a 7th level spell probably doesn't need a lot of blindsight. It's nice to have, but because it's such a high level spell, it is, and it only goes to 30 feet, it's not necessarily wildly powerful. The fly speed is really cool, but a fly speed of 40 feet is significantly slower than the actual fly spell.
Right.
And while the breath weapon is cool, 3d8 force damage as an act. Oh no, it is as a bonus action. That's pretty nice.
On every turn.
Yeah. So okay, I agree that, and because it doesn't count as a spell by itself, that's just some solid extra force damage you get to toss out. It's not a lot of damage. 3d8 damage again as a 7th level spell. Not a lot of damage. This seems like it would be a lot of fun to use. Mm-hmm. But the scenarios in which I would find it more effective than a lot of other 7th level spells would be pretty minimal.
I think it would definitely lend itself to the roleplay aspect of I am trying to get into the dragon culture.
Yeah.
Or, it's all flavor.
If you were a dragon type sorcerer or something like this would be a lot of fun to use.
Absolutely.
I'll also point out this would be amazing as a magic item.
Oh, yeah. Or maybe
right?
the statuette.
If I was a fighter or something, or a ranger, or anything, I mean, even as a spellcaster, this would still be fantastic if I didn't have to use a spell slot for it. This is a cool spell. It's just 7th level spells are so powerful that this spell would have to compete with my choice to cast a different 7th level spell.
I'm just going to use my rod of Draconic transformation.
Yeah.
With 7 charges.
Which would be really cool. That would be an awesome item.
I mean, maybe you can have a quest where they go find a magic school where some wizard can help them make a rod of this.
Totally.
Infuse the statuette into the rod or whatever.
This gets into an interesting space that I think is an odd limitation of Dungeons & Dragons, especially as you get into the really high-level spells for wizards or sorcerers, which is some of these spells are so interesting, and in the right scenario, they'd be so much fun to use, and even worth a spell slot. Except that it means that it needs to be part of your memorized spells for the day, or part of your, if you're a wizard, or part of your very limited number of spells that you can select if you're a sorcerer. And that creates an odd problem, which is I'm not ever going to pick the spell that would be a lot of fun to cast over the spell that is going to help me defeat the difficult bad guy that I need to go fight. Just on the off chance that I might be fighting a difficult bad guy, I want to have that spell in my back pocket. It's a much more versatile spell. Mm-hmm. And I really like these spells like this, where if I was in a town fighting a bunch of mooks, this would be a really fun spell to use as a powerful wizard, to be like, you're just a bunch of mooks. I'm gonna show you what it's like to fight a really powerful wizard.
Let me just sprout wings, fly, and breathe on you.
Right, and I can see you. Even in darkness, I turn off the lights. I cast a darkness spell, and then have this as my follow up. And now you can't see, and I've got force damage breathing out in every direction and shimmering force. That's
awesome.
It's
new meaning to Batman.
Yeah, this would be so much fun to use. But the scenario in which I would have to set up in order to really make good use of it is just so much more specific than most other 7th level spells that I would take that are way more generally useful, of just dealing crazy damage to a giant area or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
I like it. It would be an awesome rod. I totally agree. Yeah. If I had a rod of Draconic transformation, Oh, man, that would be a lot of fun to
Well,
use.
plus, I could see, like, you like to throw that classic, there's a pit of lava, you have to get across it.
Yeah.
I use my Draconic transformation and fly across.
Totally. Like, it's like having flying boots or whatever, where it's like pit. This problem is now a piddly thing for me to solve.
I'll just fly over it.
And that's fantastic.
I would like to point out a statuette or figurine is a small statue, much smaller than life size, representing one or more people or animals, or sometimes a religious deity.
So it just has to be much smaller than an actual dragon.
It has to be much smaller than life size. Much smaller being the variable here.
Yeah.
A very small sculpture of a person or an animal, which is often displayed on a shelf or a stand.
It would be pretty funny if you had a statuette, but it's literally the size of a person. You have to drag it around. You're like,
this is a statuette of a giant. What do you want from me?
The problem is I kept getting a good deal on my statue maker, and I needed it to be 500 gold. And finally I gave up and said, just make me whatever statue you make for 500 gold. And this is what he made. So
then now we know statuette versus statue, but sculpture versus a statue?
I don't know. It could also be like a gargoyle or a grotesque.
Ooh, yeah.
Does that count as a statuette? Statuette?
You know what? For the purposes of Draconic transformation, it's a solid maybe.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow it. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. And if you would like to ask your own question, go to nextsessionpodcast.com. On our website, scroll all the way to the bottom, ask your question.
Yeah. You can also find us on Facebook at The Next Session, or on Instagram at Next Session Podcast. And don't forget, when you ask your questions, if we're going to answer your question on air, we will send you a sticker, and we'll send you a little communication back saying, please send us your address. We're answering your question on air.
Yeah, usually I message right away and go, thanks for your question.
Yeah. So I'm Adam Johns.
And I'm Alyssa Johns.
Tune in next time, and we'll help you prep for your next session.
Goodbye.